Just take a second.
Talk shoes.
Recorded live.
Well, welcome to the call, everybody. This is Matthew, and we have another Wednesday night conference call talking about truth. We are free men and women on the land, and we have a special guest with us tonight, Christian Walters. And without further ado, I'd go ahead and turn it over to Christian. And when Christian has an opportunity to share some thoughts, I think we're going to go ahead and open it up to some questions. So go ahead, Christian.
Okay, well, thanks very much for having me on this Wednesday, October the 7th here. But my name's Christian Walters, and I'm the host of a show, Money, Banking, and Trust by Moving Titles and Commerce, on every Saturday at Eastern Time at 7 p.m. And I discuss a lot of things. Really, if you understand the wording of the title itself, Money, Banking, and Trust by Moving Titles and Commerce, really that kind of encapsulates the whole show, really. So it's claiming titles. It's all about claiming titles, and I have a kind of a unique way of looking at it and expressing it through a trust, and that seems to be the hot setup right now, and that's what I'm really working on right now is the trust, expressing the trust. And the claiming of the titles and the moving of the titles, really through, except for value, UCC and the GSA forms and IRS forms, in expressing the trust. And really how you express the trust is through your signature, whether you give a qualified signature or a unrestricted signature. Your signature is the key to expressing the trust. And I think today everything is really a colorable contract. And the reason why I say it's colorable contracts, because we really don't have contracts today, because the money's been taken out of the banking system today. The actual value of it is worthless. And if we can't complete a contract, then we don't have any common law, because you can't give value for consideration to get a remedy. To get a remedy, you must get payment. And if you can't get paid, then there is no common law. So it's a colorable contract wrapping and hiding a trust at its core. And the core is the trust, and that's the secret they're hiding. Now, there was a case. It was U.S. versus SNEP. I forget the year, but it was the U.S. coming at SNEP. The U.S. was really the CIA. SNEP had gotten a job at the CIA, and he worked there for 15 years, but when he hired in, he signed a contract that he wouldn't write any books or material without prior authorization from the CIA. He worked there 15 years, and when he quit, they had him sign another contract to the same effect. So they had two contracts in agreement with him. So when he quit, he went out and he wrote a book and sold the rights to the book and got a funded the book, and the CIA came at him, and instead of suing him under tort action with contract law, they came at him under trust law. Now, I think that's an indication that where we should be going. If the CIA, the U.S., is coming at individuals when they had two solid contracts signed, and instead of coming at them under contract law, they came at them under trust law, I think that's telling us that's where we need to go. So that's the direction I'm taking in expressing the trust through the signatures. So I have a way of looking at it as being everything is a title in the public, which is fiction land, representing the real asset or the real product or real thing in the private. And this colorable title can be moved. And I have a simple formula of claiming it first on a UCC1 and then moving it with a UCC3. And whoever has the title, whoever's the holder, is the one who has liability. And I also look at it as being a ledger sheet under GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles, and FASB, Financial Accounting Standards Boards. And I look at everything being as a balance sheet, and at the end of the day, all the accounts have to balance. The assets have to balance liabilities and bring the account to a zero at the end of the day. If the account is out of balance, then there has to be a bond written against the account to balance the account, and that's when they arrest you. So we have to learn how to balance the accounts, keep the accounts to zero by claiming and creating titles and moving the titles to zero the accounts. Because when they trick you into giving them your signature on a charge or an indictment or a bill, and it comes in the mail or by a process server or an arrest warrant for your arrest, that's a charge that you created looking for your signature to complete it. And when you give your signature to it, either voluntarily or involuntarily, you just gave authorization for the charge, and they ledgered it in the liability side of the account. And now you have to create a contrary or a counter charge to that by creating another title and then moving that title into the other side of the asset block on the ledger sheet, thereby balancing the account and bringing the account to zero, and now the charges are vanished, they're brought to zero, they're gone. And that's basically it in a nutshell. It's really simple. I think we make it too difficult, and we need to be going on the KISS principle, the keeping it simple stupids, and I think we make it too hard. And then through the private administrative remedy on the private side, through the moving of the titles and claiming of the titles and expressing the trust, and then bringing the evidence in on the public side for the second witness or the recognition that you settled and closed your account and getting them to agree to it. And we're working on the last phase of that, which is kind of like a litigation in court, to get the public side of the court to recognize our private-sided agreement that we've already closed and settled all the cases. And then we hit upon the idea of the expressing of the trust really being that through the signatures, which was the key. And I don't know if any of you have seen the movie National Treasure, where he had that special-looking key, and it had to fit exactly into the slot. And when it fit into the slot, then everything opened up, and the door opened up, and he was there into the treasure room. I think this is the same way. The key to opening the door is really when they look at your signature, they can tell whether or not you know who you are by your signature, how you're signing. Because if it's all trust in the core in the center, then you have a trust with trust positions. And those trust positions, you have a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary. And if you go over those positions, the grantor, he's the one that's the private banker, so to speak. He's the one who funds the trust. And then you have a trustee who is really the receiver of the bills or receiver of the documents, and also the payer of the bills or the documents. He's the one who ledgers them into the accounts and is responsible for keeping the accounting in the trust. And then you have the beneficiary, who picks up the disbursements of the trust, and that beneficiary is the one who can make a claim for any deficiency. So you have those grantor, trustee, and beneficiary, and by the way that you sign is the key that unlocks the door to the trust. And the grantor, you would sign by grantor in the signature, and the trustee, you would sign by trustee and your signature, and the beneficiary, you would sign by beneficiary and your signature. And you're going to be at one time or another all three positions. Two of those positions at any one time. Not all three at the same time. Because if you're all three at the same time, you're going to freeze the trust. And also if you're the trustee and the beneficiary, you would also freeze the trust. And there could be a fourth position on this, which would be the authorized rep, who would be working under a contract with the trust and the trustee on behalf of the trust. And he may be co-trustee or co-payor or co-receiver of the bills. It just depends on how the contract is written. And really that would be a position appointment from the grantor to the authorized rep on a Form 56 by the grantor, appointing him to be his position. So there's the fourth position in a trust. And then we also have another signature, which is just the real man's signature, without any restrictions or qualifiers on it, just a plain signature. And any time that signature appears into the public, that signature is going to be construed as being the straw man. And you're going to waive all your rights in the private.
Yeah, if you don't restrict your signature, they'll construe it any way they want to.
Right, they're going to construe it. Because if you look under Black's Law definition of trust, under, I think it's sesticate trust or implied trust, it says that the courts, if equity, if you really don't express the trust, they are going to construe it. And that's our first position. And that's the one we always fall down on. We never express the trust. And therefore we drop the ball. And when we drop the ball, they have to pick the ball up and do something with it. And naturally, they're going to pick it up and construe it according to their own bias. And they're going to construe you to be the trustee and responsible for payment under Federal Reserve notes, where if I came in and expressed the trust first, then I would have the ability to set up the law of the trust, and I would set it up under 1776 law form, which is pre-statutory, pre-United States, pre-state, pre-statutes and codes. And when I do that, then I can set up expressing my intent to make payment in private credit instruments or negotiable debt instruments, also known as NDIs. And when I do that, they really can't say anything because trust law is governed, the law of the trust is really by the grantor, whatever he expressed. But if I drop that ball and don't express that, now they're going to construe it as payment's going to have to be acceptable and nothing other than Federal Reserve notes. And since I don't have enough Federal Reserve notes, since they're controlled, then sooner or later I'm going to be in breach of fiduciary duty, and if I'm in a court case, that's exactly why I'm there. Whatever the charge is in a court case is because I didn't make a payment under what they wanted. So I'm in breach of fiduciary duty. So I have the option, but I waived it because I didn't express the trust, and I lost that right. And that right comes from the 1776 Declaration of Independence, where it says in there that I have all the unalienable rights given to me by God, but I've waived them because I didn't express the trust. So that charter or that trust that was granted to me by God, I never did an acceptance on it and claimed it, for one thing. Only the signatures of the original parties there signed it, did an acceptance on it. And I think after we do an acceptance on that 1776 Declaration of Independence, then we have the upper hand and we've reversed ourselves from the lower position under the public policy in the public, and now we can claim that we're the grantors and that we have the grantor status. Since all these court cases and things, bills that comes into your mail are really on the public side, they're looking for your signature to give it the energy they need, which is giving them the right to access your trust account, aka strawman sesticate trust, and thereby having access to the funds, unbeknownst to you. But now when I know what's going on and I know how to circumvent that, I can cut them off at the pass and claim that account solely for my use and no one else's. And that's through the expression of the trust. And I think the positions are really spelled out by the way that you sign, and they can look at any document that you sign and know whether or not it's going to fit the key into the key slot and whether or not the door opens up just by them looking at the signatures. They can tell exactly who you are, whether or not you know who you are. And some of us are just walking the path, or knowing the path, but not really walking the path. Or we may be just parroting the terms and not really understanding the terms. And really we need a greater understanding or greater knowledge of the application of the doctrine in order to be able to apply it. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So if we'd open it up for some calls, take some questions and things, and we'll just have an open discussion.
Hey, Christian, this is Matthew.
Yeah, Matt.
Can you share with our listeners a little bit about some of the successes that you've had with this approach?
Well, we had a case on in court that was coming into a foreclosure, and the case had been gone, I guess, almost a year or so. The fellow never responded to the original 20 days on the complaint. So there was no answer given in the court, and that pretty much, if you don't answer it in the 20 days, do something there, then you pretty much lost the whole court case right from there on. It's just a matter of time before it catches up with you. So he never answered the complaint. But we came in and put some documents in there, and the first 3 lines of the documentation was an expression of the trust, and with a footnote with some case sites to explain that we were the grantor, as we were claiming the grantor and beneficiary, where the court is construing you to be the trustee. So we came in claiming that we were the beneficiary, in contrast to them claiming that we were the trustee, and that caused a problem, and that froze the trust. And we just put that in there, and the case, or not the case, the sale was on the sale block that very same day, got pulled off. And we thought that, well, since if we didn't come in expressing who we were, other than being grantor and beneficiary with the evidence, then sooner or later, I figured 30 days later, they were going to come back in and reschedule the sale, which they did. So that pretty much proved. And then we're working on some other things about how to come up with the evidence as to who we are to prove that we are the grantor and the beneficiary. And we're working on that. So that was the case that you're referring to.
Would that be done, Christian, with a notice and demand in the private chambers?
Yeah, that's what that was. It was a notice that we were the grantor and coming in as the beneficiary into the case, and the demand would be that
Chris, this is Pat in Pennsylvania. I got a couple questions.
Yeah, hold on just a moment, would you? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Howard Hughes had everything in a trust, and he was one that said, don't own anything but control everything. A lot of trust, from what I've understand, including some of these trusts that could not be broken, like the Illinois Trust and the Massachusetts Trust, has been broken and frozen by the feds and the IRS, because they're stating that you can't benefit from a trust if you're a grantor or a trustee.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what the character of the trust was, but I'm going to suspect that the character of the trust is formed by the law form that it was formed under. So if you're formed a trust that is under statutory, then you're responsible to the statutory statutes, and your trust can be pierced. So if your law form was pre-statutes and codes, pre-United States, pre-1791, that's why we're declaring the Declaration of Independence to be our law form of 1776. If we are pre-United States, pre-statutes and codes, then the character of the trust is not statutory, and therefore don't fall under the statutes and codes.
So then you can benefit from the trust even if you're the grantor.
Yeah, you as grantor can be the beneficiary of your own trust, but you can't be trustee.
Okay.
That kind of depends on the situation, though, doesn't it, Christian? Sometimes you want to be a trustee, sometimes you want to be a beneficiary. Depends on if you're in equity or...
I would say outside of court, you really want to be grantor, forming the trust as grantor, and then you really want to be the trustee. So you could operate on the trust. But if you were in court and under equity, then you'd want to be grantor and beneficiary.
Well, a trustee can't benefit from a trust. They get paid to service the trust in the best interest of the trust.
I'm maybe not making it clear enough. You want to be all three positions during some time, but you don't want to be all three positions at the same time. So you want to be grantor or beneficiary, say, out of court, and you want to be grantor and trustee in court.
Can you do that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, is this an express trust?
Express trust, right.
Okay.
So the in court, as being the trustee, I probably want to be trustee long enough to appoint the trustee actually being a co-trustee, which would be, say, the judge to settle and close the case. And I would want to be really authorized representative under that position. That would give me an additional layer of protection because I really wasn't the trustee. But then out of court, I would probably want to function as trustee.
Okay. Yeah, I know a retired policeman that started an express trust, and he had problems for the first, getting it going because they said it was benefiting from a trust. What he eventually had to do, because he had two houses, he had a huge yacht, and he had a big RV, Class A RV. What he ended up having to do was being the grantor and then having two separate trustees, which have to operate under your rules and regulations of the trust, and then he put everything else in his children's name as beneficiary. That way he could still use it as long as he was alive, and it would transfer over to him without any, taxes or anything. But they tried to pull him to court 2 or 3 times for trying to be a trustee or a beneficiary of his own trust, and it was an express trust. That's why I brought the subject up.
Yeah,
there's always a way to get around it. You just have to.
Yeah, you have to do some reading and some study, and there's some excellent books and things out there that you can read. The more you know about trust, really, that's the thing they don't want you to know about.
Yeah, they're hard to find. They try to keep them off the market and the internet as much as possible. And if you do find one, it's pretty confusing.
If you do find information, typically they're bashing it too.
Yeah.
If you go to Quatloos, they'll tell you that pure trusts are a scam. That's just to scare you away from them.
Oh, sure, yeah. Any place the judge tells me they go over here, that's the last place I want to go. Any place where those fictions tell me where I don't want to be, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, it's typically the mere opposite.
That's what Howard Hughes says. He says if you want to make money, he says do the opposite of everybody else.
Oh, what? I think you said it earlier. You said Rockefeller said that, hey, I want to own nothing and control everything, and I do that by trust.
Hughes said the same thing. And Hughes had everything in trust, and he was even drawing food stamps and public assistance.
Yeah, so trust is where I want to be, really.
Yeah, I've been saying this for the last 40 years, but, trying to find somebody knowledgeable and how to set it up at a reasonable, cost is another issue because there's about 1,200 different types of trust out there. And it's hard to find somebody that is an expert in a particular type of trust and how you want to operate the trust.
Yeah, and most of them are all under statutes and codes experts.
Right.
And I don't want to be under statutes and codes.
Yeah, the ones I work with are all pure trusts.
Yep. But the law form
pure trust is okay, but you have to turn everything over to the Vatican.
Well, say that again.
Over to the Vatican?
A pure trust is okay, but when you form a pure trust, everything is owned. You have to turn everything over to, and everything is owned by the Vatican.
Who told you that?
If you look deep enough in it, that's the way it ends up. It all has to do with how everything was originally set up, which goes all the way back to almost Christ's time, as far as pure trust, and these were controlled and owned by the church. The synagogues and the churches.
That's the first I heard of that.
Pure trust came from, England and during the Crusades and so forth also, but when England went broke, Britain went broke, they turned everything over to the Vatican.
Yeah, the Vatican had to turn up with a gimmick to hide all the money that they were making.
Right. But the king turned everything over to the Vatican, and it gets confusing because there's a whole lot involved in there, and it's all paper trail, and everything is controlled basically by the IMF. So it's, a pure trust. Express trust is the way to go if you set it up right, because there's different types of express trusts also.
Yeah, well, it's not just the expression of the trust setting it up, but the greater part of it is really in operating the trust properly.
Right.
That's where everybody falls down. They just want to hand somebody the duty of it. Here, run this for me. They don't even understand it themselves.
That's because they don't want to take any responsibility for themselves.
Yeah, and that's why we're in this mess.
You're absolutely correct.
Everybody assumes that it's not my problem. Well, it is my problem, and until I start responsibly addressing my own issues, then that's when the problem will be corrected. When I accept the responsibility that I'm the one that created all this mess, and I need to fix it.
Not only that, Christian, but our school system and the media has taught us to blame everybody else for our problems. So it's systemic.
Yeah, that's the first thing Adam and Eve did when they sinned. They blamed each other and blamed God and blamed Satan and blamed everybody but themselves, who was the one who ate the apple.
Yeah, they didn't take any responsibility for their actions, didn't they? That's an interesting point.
So anyway, I think the formation of the trust is one step, but really the operation of the trust is the bigger part. So anybody else have a question on that?
If you have a question, go ahead and hit *8 on your phone, and it'll pop up on my screen. I can go ahead and unmute you. Tim, you out there?
Yes, sir.
How you doing tonight?
Good. How you doing? How you guys doing?
Real good. How's everything going on your end?
Good. Still clear. I'm debating sending off a negative averment to the IRS for my OID money. I'm just kind of swirling around the pool a little bit, but my mortgage is still good. They haven't tried to contact me.
Yeah, you used Tim Turner's process, didn't you?
For the mortgage?
Yeah.
No, it was R.J. McGee.
Oh, okay. I guess I thought you said you used. I knew it was one of them.
Well, I used Tim Turner's bond because I used Tim Turner's process to become a secured party creditor.
Now, did RJ's process use any of the expression of the trust that Christian's talking about tonight?
It didn't, except I threw my own trust declaration in toward the end.
Uh-huh.
So whether that made a difference or not, I'm not sure. My mom is going through it now, so in about probably 4 or 5 weeks, I'll know if she overcomes her mortgage issues.
Yeah. Where is she on the process?
She's sent, the escrow agent has sent a letter in stating that they're holding the payment in exchange for the note.
Has she stopped paying with FRNs?
Yes.
Well, we'll be definitely interested in hearing how that goes.
Yeah, that'll be 2 confirmed. That's pretty strong nowadays.
Did you ask for the notes back?
No, I never sent the notes to the bank. We used an escrow agent, a third-party escrow agent, intermediary.
I mean, for making a payment?
Right, for tendering a payment. They wrote a letter, and I wrote a letter to the bank saying that the legal tender funds are being held there.
Go back to the beginning of the mortgage when you did closing. The original notes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever asked for the original notes back?
Total through the whole process?
Now, here's something I've discovered. I was reading some examples through a trust book I was reading, and it gave an example. Anytime I give you my pen, we have there's one test you have to test to see if we have a trust. And that is, it's going to be the difference of a formation of a trust, that would be a relationship, or it could be an agency. It's either going to be a trust or an agency when I give you my pen. And the test is, you got to ask this. When I gave you my pen, was the agreement that I would get the exact pen back? Or would it be any pen would suffice? Because if it wasn't the specific pen that I was supposed to get back, and it was just any pen, then we have an agency. We don't have a trust. But anytime I want the original pen back, that's a trust. That's the relationship that's established. Now, anytime you don't, well, there was another example. There was one that, let's say you gave somebody $500 in 20s for them to keep, and you were supposed to get the $500 back. If the party gave you $500, say 5 $100 bills, that was an agency, it wasn't a trust. Mm-hmm. But if I got the exact 20s back, or wanted the exact 20s back of the $500, that was a trust. So the same way, at closing, at escrow, when I gave them the promissory note, if I didn't express it being a trust and I wanted the exact unaltered note back, it's construed to be a debt. If I would have expressed it being a trust or gone back in and re-expressed it as being a trust, that I wanted the exact note back, therefore it wouldn't be construed as a debt. Now, if I came back in and asked for a notice and demand the note back, now it can't be construed as a debt.
I understand.
Since you can't give me the note back because it's been altered now, because it's been endorsed and securitized and sold and you guys don't have it, therefore you still owe me, and since I still have the house, let's just call it even. And oh, by the way, all the profits that you gain from that note and all the proceeds from it, that's mine also. Give that back.
Well, I asked for the note so it couldn't be represented to another debt collector in exchange for the payment in full.
Okay, but did you re-express the trust as being a trust and you wanted the note back and then demand the note back? Because
no.
If you didn't express the trust. And that's the first step you got to do. And you can always go back and recorrect it again, because under the restatement of trust law, the second, it says under Section 332, it says you got the right as the grantor to come back in and modify the trust or revoke the trust if you expressed it in writing. But
I did that, but it was after.
Yeah, okay, so but there, under that rule it says you can go back in and re-express it, correct your mistakes, and because it was your intent. It was your intent. Because you're the godhead of the trust, and everything that you say goes, but yet they're going to construe it as being, if you didn't express it being revocable, then it's irrevocable. No, it's not. You can go back in and reform it and make it into anything that you want because it was your intent to be otherwise, and now they can't construe it. That's what's so powerful about this trust. Except we're not going back in and correcting our problem because we never expressed the trust to begin with, and therefore they construe it to be a debt, and then they get us in a secondary contract in the mortgage, and now we're liable for that. But all we had to do was go back in, re-express the trust that I wanted the trust note back unaltered, and then demand the note back, and that puts them between a rock and a hard spot, and then we're not under contract law like U.S. versus SNAP. We're under trust law. I'll come back in and get them for a breach of trust, not under contract.
I could essentially still do that now.
Look up U.S. versus SNEP. That's SNEPP. Look at that case. But the whole key is re-expressing the trust and then demanding the note back. And then they can't construe it as being a debt, and you got the right to cancel this fraudulent secondary contract, this Jewish Shatar contract, because it's not it wasn't my intent.
What did you call that kind of contract, Christian?
Jewish Shatar.
How do you spell that?
Shetar, S-H-E-T-A-R.
Jewish Shatar?
Yes.
What was the first word?
Shatar. Jewish Shatar. It's a Jewish contract. It traces all the way back to Babylon in the Jewish times.
And what is it, a one-sided contract or something? Or?
The unconscionable contract, yes. And it's a mortgage. It's a mortgage contract. If you really understood the contract that you were signing, you would never sign it.
Jewishetar?
Yeah, Jewish. The Jews. Israel.
Right, Jewish space.
Jewish Shatar.
Okay. I wanted to Google it. So.
Almost sounds like a Jewish rock band or something. Well, I'm not really sure, but they have not contacted me, and it's been we're going on 14 months.
Sounds good.
So I'm hoping I've got everything in place. I've got a commercial lien on them. I don't know if that's, all I've done is gotten it apostilled at the state. I haven't filed
the IRS. Tried to use that as a set-off?
What's that?
Have you tried to use that as a set-off or gone through the IRS for collection on that?
No, I haven't. I was told that you apostille it and then you put it on a UCC1 and then you use like Tim's uses a Coast Guard lien. But I don't have in the Coast Guard lien form. There's identifiers for each liability, and I don't know where to get these identifiers. Is that half and half chicken? Yes, it is. So anyway, it's easy to get the identifiers for the corporations, but when it comes to the individuals, you pretty much need their Social Security number or birth certificate number or something like that.
Have you notified them of the lien?
Not yet. I wasn't going to do that until I've notified them through the international commercial claim process all the way up from first, second, and final demand for payments and then notary protest.
Did you file it in the county?
Yes, it's filed into the county, and it's apostilled. It's almost $33 million.
Did you file it in the county where their property is?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually filed it into the get notice, but the affidavit that clearly explains that it's a commercial lien that can be publicly viewed, and the amount and who it's against on the affidavit into the county.
Yeah, but you haven't sent that out to the IRS at all or anything?
I haven't.
Yeah. And you haven't notified...
I don't even know how to go there.
You haven't notified them as that being a set-off against the claim?
No. Against what claim?
Their claim.
Oh, that there's still a mortgage?
Yeah, see, they would be claiming I owed, say, $100,000 on the mortgage, and I'm going to say, hey, you guys owe me $200 million, so let's trade this off. Let's do a set-off.
No, I never approached that.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, I turned it all over to the IRS, and they're coming down from the $100 million. So what do you want to do about this mortgage?
What forms do you use? Do you just use a letter?
For which part?
For the to inform the IRS that you want to do a set-off.
Yeah, through the IRS forms. The 1099As, the OIDs, the 1096, 1040 forms.
Interesting. But I know once you file the Coast Guard lien that automatically attaches liens to their properties. But you have to have the individual identifiers, i.e. their social security number or birth certificate number.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're creating a title with an access into their strawman account.
Right.
And that's where they're going to get the assets from to counterbalance or pay you, or that's where all the funds come out of. Basically, that's what you do on the IRS forms. The OID is going to identify who the original issuer was and who the lender and who the borrowers are on the A's. So it's really just, like I said at the beginning of the show, it's the moving of the titles by the IRS forms and the GSA forms. So
the
IRS becomes my enforcement agent, and it's almost like it's an Article III court, because under the free directive, I would call a DIB hearing, and then I would come under the USAM, that's the U.S. Attorney's Manual, under 6-4.010, which basically says that all agencies must comport to the IRS records. And those accounts must balance. And who's the one who gives the IRS their information? I do, on the IRS forms. So all the IRS forms is really programmed by my information I put in there, and that agency, the IRS, all those things must comport to, say, like the Department of Justice or courts or whatever. Those agencies must comport to the IRS.
When you do your GSA forms, are you copy the regulatory secretariat, or you actually send him originals, or do you not even send him anything at all?
Well, I'm gonna hang on to my originals of everything that I send, except for negotiable instruments that I'm going to use as a payment.
Uh-huh.
If I'm the grantor, I don't give anything up. I'm keeping all originals. If I'm the contract writer, I'm going to keep my contract.
You just send them certified copies?
Yeah. Now, since I'm the document keeper, I'm the handler of the originals. I have the originals. I am the one who can certify the copies, and I'm going to give a tested copy of the original and send them the copies.
Do you have a stamp that you use to do that, Christian? Or do you just hand right on there, this is an attested copy?
Well, my stamp is my signature. That is my seal. That is my accept for value also.
You can use a thumbprint as well.
Yeah, I've seen that done a lot.
But I mean, back to my question: where do you send your GSAs? Directly to the libelee, I guess we'll call them, or do you? Because
I notify all parties. That's due process. So I got to give due process. Send everybody that's a party to this the copies of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to send the documentation on to the IRS. Let them do the enforcement and collection for me.
So you don't send anything to the GSA?
No, I'm just going to use their forms.
Hmm.
And see, on the public side, we have form, process, and procedure. Nothing moves without a form. So give them the form that they're used to seeing. If you look on the bottom of those forms, it says on there, for public use. Okay, well, The only thing they can see in the public is the straw man, so I'm going to come through the face of the straw man, putting that mask on. I'm going to appear in the public as the real man, putting that face of the straw man on, and use their forms.
Mm-hmm.
Do their form, their process, their procedure. Pretty much they got to do what they got to do because they're under the statutes and codes, or like the UCC. It's just like the movie The Matrix. When he came out of that phone booth at the end of the movie and he sent it into the heavens of the Matrix, he knew how to write and read the code. So when I know how to write and read the code because I've studied UCC, now it becomes really obsolete because it's unless otherwise by agreement. Now I write my own contracts using the code. Now I'm in control of my own destiny.
It's a beautiful thing.
Control my own destiny.
I hear liar, liar back there.
So UCC just more or less, once I know the code verbiage, I really don't need UCC any longer. I just use the verbiage to write my own code, my own contracts. And then I always want to give them a colorable way out on the public side and then actually use the administrative side, the private side, for the closure. But I'm thinking that if the trust was used properly in expressing it, there's no reason. If the kids are making all kinds of noise in the back room, it's 11 o'clock, and it's time to go to bed, Dad walks in and says, hey, that's enough, get to bed. Oh, by the way, brush your teeth. So I walk into court as being Dad, the grantor. I can tell the kids, hey, shut this case down, go to bed. And I can appear probably just through paperwork and maybe not even have to go into court if I hit it with enough time beforehand. So as long as I come in with a notice of interest, say that I am the grantor, that would be the notice of interest, followed by the statement of interest, which is going to be the material fact to support my NOI. And that SOI, that statement of interest, that's going to be the evidence to prove I'm the grantor and the beneficiary. And since they've got all these court cases are really nothing more than disguises for getting into your Cestacade trust, then they're nothing more than sub-trust trying to get into the trust. Under the disguise of you voluntarily giving them your signature on an unqualified signature.
Yeah.
But if I qualify this signature, we can play this game, and they know who I am because I'm signing as grantor. I don't have to say anything other than what's in the paperwork. And since that sub-trust, that Cestacade trust, that Social Security number is really a beneficiary trust drawn against the form of situs trust, the birth certificate, and that's on the plus side of the ledger sheet, and the Cestacade is on the minus side of the ledger sheet, both of them balancing one out, one drawn against the other. But they're both sub-trust in character, trying to come in through this sub-trust court. But if I express it being that I'm the trust, the grantor of all these sub-trusts, then I have the right to close these sub-trusts down. And if I really wanted to bring in the big hammer, I could claim the master trust, which is the Declaration of Independence, which is the master that all sub-trusts are drawn against. And I don't even think I'd have to bring that into court, but I could if I had to. And there's really nothing they can say about that one. You guys going to argue that the Declaration of Independence, that I don't have any unalienable rights? And if you look up the definition in Black's Law of alienable, it says it's transferable rights. Well, that Declaration of Independence says I have unalienable rights. In other words, non-transferable rights. How come you guys are transferring my rights?
Yeah.
Only because I don't know who I am.
Exactly.
Are you just getting a certified copy of that, and accepting it for value, or the Declaration of Independence, and then putting it on the public record?
Yeah, I would get a certified copy of the from the National Archives, do an accept for value on it, send that on to get it apostilled, and now you got an apostilled copy. Then I wouldn't put the notice of. I would put a notice of that into the county. Just a notice, not the actual document, because I don't want to record the actual documents back into the county. I'm going to give it back to them again. Just a notice of what I've done. And if you want an example of what a notice is, you look at a UCC1 filing statement or UCC3. Since year 2000, all UCC filings have been nothing more than notice filings. And just look at the information that's on there, and that'll give you a clue of how to put together a notice and put a notice into the county. Or you could use a UCC1 and claim it on a 1, and that is also a notice filing. But then I would take 2 notifications, 2 witnesses, which would be the UCC1 and say the county recording. Now I got 2 witnesses to establish a fact. And that's what all law is based on. So once I've established the fact and declared it under a declaration that I've accepted the master charter or the master trust, the 1776 Declaration of Independence, and that is my law form, there would be my evidence I would need to, which would be the SOI, to bring into a case and definitely have proof that I am the grantor and the beneficiary on this master trust, as well as this subtrust.
The subtrust would be the court case number or whatever.
SDK Trust, the Foreign Situs Trust, those are all subtrusts.
Okay.
In fact, even the Constitution is a subtrust off the master trust. But how are they going to... You didn't express the trust, therefore they construed you to be under the Constitution. You need to come back in and express yourself being under the Declaration of Independence in control of the SDK and Foreign Situs Trusts. Otherwise, you're going to be construed to be under the Constitution, and they are in control of the Foreign Situs Trust and SDK Trust.
So getting control of the Foreign Situs Trust is by accepting for value your birth certificate.
That's one way, but I think there's another powerful way is that that's a subtrust, but we still don't have control of the master trust. We have to do it to the Declaration of Independence, which that subtrust is drawn against.
Hey, Christian, did you say that you were working on getting access to certified copies of the Declaration of Independence that you're going to share with us?
Yeah, I got the numbers here someplace, but really all you have to do is get a hold of the National Archives and get a hold of the lady that runs that. I forget her name. Jane Fitzgerald is her name.
Okay.
And she'll give you all the instructions and then what it costs. I think it's like $15 to get a certified copy of the Declaration of Independence. And then you send it over from there to Hillary Clinton's office to get it apostilled.
Jane Fitzgerald, National Archives. And
So
then
like $10 over there, and then another $15 from the National Archives, $25. You got the whole thing.
get a certified copy from Jane, and then send it over to.
So we're sending it to Hillary, not our Florida guy. I don't know what's his name. Secretary of State there. I can't remember his name.
Then you send it over to Hillary. She's the Secretary of State to get it apostilled.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Does Jane give you instructions on how to do that or who to mail that to?
Yeah, she'll give you the whole ball of wax. Yep.
Okay. And then our friend Hillary will sign it, and then we'll have like a self-addressed stamped envelope in there to mail back to us.
Right. And I would do a UCC1 filing. That would be a one public witness. And then I would do a county recording notice. That would be a second one. And I would attach all those documents to that. And now I got one whole package, which is my SOI, my proof material fact that my NOI is that I'm the grantor and the beneficiary.
Those are your two witnesses.
Yeah.
The UCC one and the county court notice.
The Cesta K Trust, the Social Security number. Because I would go back into the Social Security Administration and I would reapply on an SS5 form, except I would take that out of the office there. I wouldn't make it out there. I'd take it home with me, fill it out, sign it in blue ink, and then make a copy of that, then give the copy back to them. 2 weeks later, when I get the burst or the beneficial coupon, I would sign that as being with the special qualified signatures. Now the SS5 I'm going to sign by grantor and a signature, and then when I get the beneficiary card, I'm going to sign by beneficiary and a signature. Now I've got the originals, and I can take and make copies of those, test copies of those, and I can put those into a court case as the SOI being the fact that I am the grantor on this Cesta K Trust and the beneficiary on this Cesta K Trust. So there's my claiming of the subtrust and my claiming of the master trust. And I don't think we'd have to come in with just more than claiming the subtrust, the Cesta K Trust. And if we wanted to bring in the big hammer, we could bring in the claiming of the acceptance of the Declaration of Independence.
Well, folks, we're at the top of the hour here. If we have any other questions for Christian, go ahead and hit *8 on your phone, and I'll unmute you, and I'll give you an opportunity to ask Christian your question. And if we don't have anybody that has any questions, then we may end up just cutting our call a little bit early tonight. If that's okay with you, Christian?
That's okay.
And just a quick plug-in for the Yahoo group. A lot of good information out there. groups.yahoo.com/group/The Free Americans. If you're not already signed up, you want to go out there and get signed up and get access to a lot of good information, a lot of good files to download and review. Again, that URL is groups.yahoo.com/group/The Free Americans. We do have one caller here with a question from Texas, South Texas. I'll go ahead and unmute you. Can you hear us? You've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
My question to Christian is, these several subtrusts under the master trust, to put in a claim for them or take control of them, should you be in the private side before you do that?
Well, I've started off on a private side. I never left the private side. It's just my way of thinking. I've been brainwashed to think I'm in the public side. The public side is nothing more than a fiction. It doesn't exist. Only in your mind.
Well, their minds too.
Yeah, they're brainwashed into thinking that it exists, yeah. But use their forms, use their process, use their procedures, because that's what they're used to seeing. And then don't cross over the private truth into their venue either. Otherwise, they got to choke on the truth and send you for a psych evaluation.
My other question is, how could I prove the subtrust exists along with the master trust?
Well, on my birth certificate application from my mother, she was listed as the informant. That's the one that formed the whole thing. That formed the Foreign Situs Trust, and then when 18 came along, when I turned 18, I didn't take over the Foreign Situs Trust, and they created the Cesta K Trust off of that.
Thanks, Christian. That answered a lot of questions.
Really, they're taking the additional one, the 1040 form, and they're taking those three instruments and forming a check. And I've given them power of attorney, so to speak, or by an unqualified signature, by combination signature rights, they have my signature to do anything they want with it. Because I never claimed it. I never expressed the trust. I never asked for the instrument back.
This might sound a little off base, but the 1040V document, would you consider that to be the private side of the ledger?
Yeah, I consider those IRS forms to be all the private side of the ledger because they're what I use to ledger that private side, really.
Right.
That's the private man's documents.
That's
the
right.
GSA forms are on their public side. So I'm going to control both sides of the ledgers just with those specific forms. I'm going to control the private side with the IRS. I'm going to control the public side by the GSA. Now I can move titles with a UCC 1 and a 3. Claim it in your collateral block on a UCC 1 first. Now you have holder status, holder in due course. Do an acceptance on it, which is very, very important. And you can do that just with your signature alone. And then move it with a 3, and whoever has holder status then has liability. They're liable to you.
There's a little, I guess I would call it rumor, that people long ago that accepted for value their BCs, that they lost it. But my question would be, if you lost it, can you get another one from the Secretary of State? And if you can, then you didn't lose it.
Misunderstanding. What did they lose again?
No. It's just been a rumor that's been going on for a few years, and it bounces around. And the rumor is that if you A4V your BC years ago, or maybe even months ago, that you just gave it away, but it is my opinion that as long as you can get one from your Secretary of State, that you still have all the BCs you can afford.
Well, if I had done the presentation right with a presentment by a notary, I've created the evidence of what I did. I don't care what they did with it after that.
Right.
Amen.
I think once you give it to them, it falls into the private black hole, so to speak, and it disappears because it can no longer be seen in the public.
As long as you proved you sent it to them,
it's done.
It's over.
And Christian, are you still swamped with email?
The email box was open as far as before the show. I checked it.
Okay, because I'd like to contact you for some private questions.
Sure.
And talk to you about that. Okay.
You have my email. I'll give it to you again. It's movingtitles@hushmail.com.
Thank you, Christian.
That email address again is movingtitles@hushmail.com.
I got it, and I hope people get a little more serious with what your information, because your information is, I think, is just grand.
Well, I'm trying to cut through all this. Kind of like Einstein, he was trying to come up with a unified theory, and I was trying to, take all this information that's out there and put it in little categories and get it all lined up so it all kind of like makes sense and it all dovetails and how it dovetails in with one another. And then all of a sudden I came upon this moving titles, and I think, man, this is a whole lot simpler. And then when I came upon the trust, I could see, oh, wow, that's even more simpler yet.
Well, I hope you get down to where you finally lock it all down in one document. That'd be nice.
Well, I would study some trust basics, because it's really not hard to write an indenture, which is
your rules
of the duties, responsibilities, the parties.
Yeah, the rules you make for your trust.
Right.
Yeah.
The instructions.
Exactly.
And anytime you goof it up, you can come back in and change it around.
That's right. You know, I was reading Bogert, and Bogert or Boger, whichever pronunciation it goes with it, he locks it down pretty good. Anyway, the point is that once, guys like you, I mean, you guys are just geniuses at this stuff, all right? And sooner or later, you're going to figure out how to reduce the paperwork, and lock it down to just maybe 2 or 3 documents, and then maybe people can start getting remedy.
Well, you too can be a genius also. We all can. It's just down to, I can, and then spend the time, make the sacrifice. And we can all know this stuff.
About taking responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, but first you have to know the doctrine. First my cup has to be filled before it overflows, and I can give somebody, whatever it overflows with. But until my cup overflows, keep on studying, keep on plugging away, keep on sacrificing, because, what a man reaps is determined by what he's sown.
Well, I think guys like you get there way before we do. We're just at the tail end.
Well, I'm just showing everybody where I've discovered some new golden nuggets. So.
Yep, that's what it's about, finding those secrets.
Well, the Bible says, whatever was hidden shall be revealed. And if you got to ask in order to receive. Seeking you shall find, knocking it shall be opened. Well, most people aren't asking, seeking, or knocking. Figuring out about their lives without, by every wind of doctrine, and they're getting blown around. Isn't that right, Christian?
Yeah, right.
Well, a lot of it's well-deserved, my friends.
All right. Well, we got a couple other callers that have some questions if you're all done.
Well, here's some information on the National Archives. It's the National Archives Trust Fund, cashier, in parentheses, it's NAT, and it's Form 72 order, and the address is 8601 Adelphia Road, College Park, Maryland. And the zip is 20740-6001. And the form you want is RG 360, Declaration of Independence, 1776. And that was $15.
National Archives Trust Fund, 8601 Delphia Road, College Park, Maryland, 204706001.
Yes. And
Form RG 360, Declaration of Independence, 1776.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hey, can you type that to me, Matthew? Maybe we can post that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
It says here, you may fax this form with your credit card information included in this section below, too. And the fax number is 202-357-5906, or call the accounts receivable specialist at 301-837-3720. And this is quoted on Form 72, which was the quote form. And that's the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration. And let's see, where's her name? Yeah, Jane Fitzgerald is her name.
That number was, that fax number was 202-357-5906.
Right.
And the phone number, 301-837-3720?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get that form online, the Form 72?
Probably could. I don't know. I wasn't the one who got the form up online, so I would assume it is.
When you say online, what do you mean?
You might be able to order this directly online.
So you're talking about the Archives website, right?
Yes, the U.S. Archives, yeah.
Okay.
For ordering the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, I found it.
I'm thinking, for expressing the trust, closing down court cases, that we could come in with the expression of the trust that we're the grantors, we're the beneficiaries, and the law of the trust is whatever the intent was of the grantor, and then coming back in with the SOI, which would be the reapplication of the Social Security number and the beneficiary card signed properly by the qualifiers, the restricted signatures, indicating that that's who we are. Once that evidence is established, that puts you in the grantor position, and whatever you say, this trust goes. And then you could just order the trust to close it down, provide a payment for any obligations that are there in private credit, and what else can they say?
Well, they can try to get you to recontract with them.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Otherwise, they'll just go silent.
I examined trust law in 3 different states, and they were very uniform. Although they may have been in different little spots, they said almost the same thing. And meaning that they have, like in Texas, they have Article 9, and it's Section 112.053, that allows you to terminate a trust. Doesn't say any particular kind, nothing specific. So a trust is a trust, that you make it specific. And because of these, the master account, the cestui, the foreign situs, what state law allows me to do is to terminate it. And you have to, of course, become the settlor. It tells you that there's a trustee and a beneficiary, and when the trustee becomes both, then you can become the settlor and terminate it. It's very interesting.
I think we just lost Christian. I think he just dropped off the call here.
That URL is posted, Matthew.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
That did not have the RG360 on it, the RG360 form. So that may be another link that we need to pull up. Harold, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, we just lost Christian. He
Sometimes that happens. He'll call back in.
yeah.
Happens on his show sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually I got dropped off about 15 minutes ago and was able to get back on again.
Hello, this is Christian.
All right, you're back. We got one more caller here, Christian, with a question. Bob, are you there? You've been unmuted.
Here I am. Joined a little bit late. Did he actually give us a list, perhaps, of references of where to study or things to? I mean, there's so much information out there that what would point us in the best direction in terms of studying?
All right.
We posted some good stuff, didn't we, Matthew?
Yeah, I think so. But again, I hear what Bob is saying. Sometimes it's good if somebody like Christian could say, well, this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And that way they can at least get their feet wet on some of the trust stuff.
Yeah, what was it you had posted? I forget this fellow's name.
Jim?
Yeah, hang on. I'm almost there. Let me go back to it. I was just there posting something.
Is it the Trust Handbook? Let's see if I get the title of it.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. Trust. Matthew, did you put in all new trust layout revision documents?
I thought Harold did that.
Okay, and we have Alfred D. Chandler. Let's see
That too.
what else I got here.
Weiss's Concise Trust Handbook. That's what it's titled.
I put that in there too.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. I read that.
Okay. I put quite a bit in there, but the one that Christian just mentioned in the beginning, that was too big to post. You can get that off of Google Books.
Which one is that?
The Trust Handbook for trustees.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very large one, and you can get that off of Google Books.
Oh, maybe you guys can just post the Google link for that.
Okay. Got to remember to do that. I'm not in the office.
Probably go to a legal law library or a bookstore and order Gilbert Law Summaries. There's one on trust.
Gilbert, Gilbert.
Yes, Gilbert Law Summaries.
Yeah, they're normally cheaper than Westlaw, so that's a good resource. Gilbert.
Yeah. It's just called Trust by Edward Hallback.
Don't forget we're recording, so if anybody misses anything, you can always go back.
And there's Austin Wakeman Scott.
Can
Law
you spell that?
Trust. And then there's also the Restatement of Trust, the second and the third.
But that's a definite. You want those.
Yeah, that would be outstanding if you guys could post those names written down just so everybody has that Restatement of Trusts. And then
that was
I thought
like that for $1,500, but if somebody would scan that would be nice.
Hey, Harold.
Yes, sir.
Is that the one he's talking about that you said was too big?
No, that's not the one. But the Restatement 2 and 3, that's right now. That's essentially the Bible right now.
Yeah, keep in mind that's
too big to post.
Yeah, I believe so.
What were you going to say, Christian?
I say that. Keep in mind that is statutory.
Which is where we don't want to be. Is that what you're saying?
It gives you. It's like UCC. UCC is really private code used in the public realm, which is public. But really, you need to understand it and know it, and then once you know it, you can use it privately. Same thing with the Restatement of Trust. You need to know the public side restatement, statutes and code thing that they're using, because that's their process and their procedure, and until you get the form down. And then you can learn the verbiage, which is the code, and then apply the code in your own way then once you know it. But you got to keep in mind that it's public side. And public is not where I want to be. I want to be under private pre-statutes and codes, which would be 1776 law form.
Exactly.
I guess that raises the question of how does one learn what 1776 law form is then?
It's very simple. I've been given all the unalienable rights. They can't be transferred. I have them all, and the only way that I'm going to lose them is if I waive them or give them up. That's it in the simplest terms.
Any right that does not harm your neighbor.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can make up anything that, doesn't harm my neighbor in any way, shape, or form that I want to make it.
I think it's very important that we start recognizing their devices to break exactly what you just stated.
Well, I know a lot of us are, parroting these terms, You know, it's just like Polly want a cracker. You know, we think we really understand them, but we really don't. It's after we keep on studying, all of a sudden then you thought the light bulb was on, but really no. Or maybe you could look at it, maybe the second light bulb goes on or something, you know. Or you go into the next onion skin down below in the next layer, and all of a sudden a whole new awareness, a new understanding opens up for you, and you thought you knew it, and you really didn't. But that all comes just from keep on studying. You know, we're all perishing for lack of knowledge, and if we don't want to perish, we need more knowledge.
Hey, can I ask a question, Christian or Harold or anybody?
Yeah,
You
go
guys,
ahead.
and that's what I just sent you, Matt. Have you guys heard of the Anti-Government Movement Guidebook or Handbook?
Yeah, for the judges, yes.
Yeah, you have? Okay.
That's been out a couple years now.
Just wondering. That's pretty ugly.
Yeah, they don't care for people like us.
Shows how. Yeah, it shows how what far reaches that they're willing to go to.
Yeah, it's a small minority. There's a small minority that's trying to hold on to power by hook or by crook. So they're going to try to denigrate you at any turn. That's why you got to have that knowledge so you can stand tall and strong when they come in, against you.
All right. We got another caller here with a question from northern Middle Tennessee. That's a mouthful. Go ahead. You've been unmuted. Can you hear us? Let me try that again here. Northern Middle Tennessee. Trying to get you to unmute.
I'll go ahead and mute out so that way you know that this is me.
All right. Wow. Computer is not responding. Well, it's 8:30, and my computer is not cooperating with me anymore. So, Christian, why don't we wrap it up here for this week, and we'll plan on resuming next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. How's that sound?
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone, for calling in tonight. Tell your friends, tell your family. Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Central Time, or Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central. We're learning about how the system is working and how we can use it to our advantage and take our power back. Thanks so much for calling in tonight. Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Night all.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.